Ready to go live in five. What up, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of the Havoc Hour. As always, I'm your host, Reek Havoc. Hope everybody is enjoying this weekend on this beautiful Saturday. I emphasize enjoying because obviously we all know there's a lot of madness going on out there these days. But, regardless of what they're telling you on TV, you got to live your life. You know, don't sit up here and drive yourself nuts. So enjoy and just listen to your boy because I got a lot to get into today. But I'm going to start with the elephant in everybody's room. Obviously, coronavirus is rocking this world in ways that nobody fully expected. And as of me speaking currently, the NBA, the NCAA, the NHL, the MLB, the Masters, everything short of bowling and cricket has been shut down, suspending all their operations until further notice, until they can get the situation under control and sustained to a degree. No basketball has been played, no baseball, no spring training. Currently, as of me speaking right now, we got a UFC event going on in Brazil with no fans in attendance. The WWE has been holding their events, their live events, without audience members at all. These are crazy times, but like I just said a second ago, the mass hysteria, the mass panic is all quite manufactured. I don't want to get too controversial right now, but this is all a lot of stuff to really get you riled up. And during this time, the best thing you do is just be safe, be smart, be alert, but don't be driving yourself crazy. Don't do that. That's what they want you to do. So everybody just be safe and be strong. Now, in that vein, I got some entertaining to do, so I'm going to recap the week on some topics that were very, very tense to me, very near and dear to me. So I'm going to get it started off in the world of basketball. Just before we shut it all down, I have a little public service announcement to make, and it is this. LeBron James. Yes, it's not the public service announcement, but he is the topic of it. LeBron James, it's time for the haters and naysayers and everyone else to lay off of this man. It's time to do that. Why do I say this? Well, going into this season, one of the biggest topics of conversation was going to be LeBron James and the subject of his longevity, whether or not he was still capable of hanging with the elite in this league, and whether or not he could lead the Los Angeles Lakers back to the finals alongside his new companion, Anthony Davis. Now, in the interest of fairness here, LeBron James is 35 years of age. He is in his 18th season. We're talking about a 3-time champion, also 3-time Finals MVP, and a 4-time NBA League MVP. I could go on for hours about the accolades, but this is just to give you some context here. Yet and still, we were talking about, can he still do it? Can LeBron and AD come together? Can they collectively do it? And all those LeBron haters out there found themselves having a ball when the season opened and the Lakers played the Clippers and Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, the fearsome duo. They lost to the Clippers, and the firestorm started. because everyone's looking like, oh, LeBron's taking a step back. LeBron can't do it no more. Kawhi's the guy. The consensus bandwagon fans best player in the league. That's who Kawhi is now. But as we sit here today, with the NBA on suspension still, I'm just gonna throw some numbers at you real quick. Currently, LeBron, in the 60 games that he's played, is averaging 25 points per game, 8 rebounds, 10 assists, averaging 34 minutes in those games. To really illuminate this picture for you, his longest season, the only year that he has played all 82 games, was 2017. He was still with the Cleveland Cavaliers. He was averaging 27 points per game, 8 rebounds, 9 assists in 36 minutes. That's a full season, not even including playoffs. Okay? The season is not even over yet, and he is on track to eclipse those numbers. And we're not even talking about his best season. We're just talking about the season that he's played all 82 games. The Lakers are currently number 1 in the Western Conference. They have clinched the playoffs already. And just before we reached the point of suspending the season, just to throw this out there as well, he and AD actually outscored both Giannis and Kawhi Leonard in back-to-back games throughout the weekend. So, in short, what's the excuse now? What is the excuse? Now, the Clippers are right behind the Lakers, don't get me wrong. They're threatening. And whenever we resume play and make it to the playoffs, they are likely to meet in the Western Conference Finals. They will always be there because the team is no joke. Obviously, Kawhi is a star in this league. Paul George, Doc Rivers is a phenomenal coach, a world champion coach. And he has built the team very much in the mold of the Boston Celtics team that he took to the finals over a decade ago. But that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about this notion that LeBron can't hang anymore. That LeBron can't do it. What's the excuse now? What is it? I'm just curious. Because if you ask me, the man has discovered the fountain of youth. Season goes on, the next season and the next, he doesn't seem to slow down. He seems to get better. Now, obviously, he can't do it alone. Hence why, supporting cast is necessary. But this is what happens when you age. But even then, he seems to be picking up more and more. This is not a case of, say, a Tom Brady, who I'm going to get into in the next topic, but it seems as though he is just turning up more as he ages. Now, obviously, he is not the same player that he was in, say, 2010, 2011 with the Miami Heat. But I'm interested. I'm interested to hear what the excuses are, and just so everybody knows here, I got Instagram Live on right now, so I welcome anyone to present that to me over the course. I'll come back to it if somebody wants to drop a comment about it, but I want to know where these excuses are. What's the deal? Why are we still? And even Stephon Marbury talking about he's not a real Laker and not having to live up to Kobe's legacy, and why are we doing this, man? Why are we doing? I thought that after we lost Kobe, the focus would be on appreciating greatness, not criticizing, not comparing, not any of that. Yet and still, we come to this point in time where there's always something other than, damn, he had a great game. He's he's defying the odds. He's giving Father Time a hell of a fight. This is ridiculous. It's really ridiculous. It's y'all gotta cut it out, man. Like, he is the best in the league currently. He's front runner for MVP. Let's just leave it alone. Let's leave it alone. Curtis, what's up, my man? What's going on, big dog? My man Curtis out there chilling on the West Coast with all these UFC fighters and stuff like that. Y'all check out the Big Curtis show, by the way. I'll get the deets from him about when he's gonna get the next episode up and going. But yeah, shout out to Curtis, my man. So yeah, like I said, I'm gonna leave this open. Anybody that wants to throw some interesting comments to me about what LeBron supposedly can't do no more, I'm open. I'm willing. I'm here to listen to it because I'm curious. I'm really curious. But moving right along, as I said, I have another topic to jump into about another very polarizing figure in sports, and this is someone who I have a lot of mixed feelings about. Talking about Tom Brady. Now, if you don't know, and I'm going to say this once, and never going to bring it up again, because I'm not exactly proud of it, but I'm a Jets fan. There it is. Done. Out the way. Being a Jets fan, Tom Brady is a source of much, much, much misery to me. I cannot explain that enough. A lot of misery, a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. Because as quarterback of the New England Patriots for the last 20 years, he has made this team the front runner in the AFC conference for the past 2 decades. I bring that up because here in 2020, for the first time in those 20 years, Tom Brady is set to become a free agent with no guarantees that he will be returning. This is not the first time he's been a free agent. Now, the times that he has been, it lasted all of maybe an hour, maybe 2, but we all knew he was going back. It was just a matter of restructuring his contract, to make more resources available, to sign more talent so they can continue to be one of the top teams in the conference as well as in the division and continuing to make them Super Bowl frontrunners. However, this particular go-around, Tom Brady is 42 years of age, coming off one of the more disappointing seasons he's ever had. The Patriots were bounced out of the playoffs in the wild card round against the Tennessee Titans. And he did not look very good in that game. Granted, the talent that was brought around him has greatly dropped in quality. You don't have a Randy Moss, a Gronkowski. He retired last season. You've got Julian Edelman, but not really much behind him. A lot of no-name guys who haven't really had the experience of being not just on a winning team, but on a on a more active team in general. So, on both ends, it's really been a bit of a disappointing downslide in terms of Brady's extended career. A lot of people didn't see him playing past 40, but he intends, as he has said, to play to at least 45. But now we're at a crossroads here. And it's very, very, very interesting because for most people, most football fans, it's hard to imagine Tom Brady playing in any other uniform other than the New England Patriots uniform. And yet, here we are today with no certainty that he will be returning to the team. I've said this to plenty of people before, but Bill Belichick has been trying to move on from Brady for the past 4 years. Obviously, the biggest obstacle in doing so is the owner, Robert Kraft, who is essentially is like Tom Brady's surrogate father. The man has done so much for his team. 6 championships brought in. The face of the franchise. I mean, what else can you really ask for in a quarterback or any football player who's brought in to be the face of your franchise? Robert Kraft is indebted to Tom Brady. And in many ways, like I said, that's like his child. So obviously his ideal vision is to see Tom Brady retire a Patriot. Problem is that again, Belichick is not exactly interested in dragging this horse another 2 to 3 years. That's not something he's expecting to do. Like, Jimmy Garoppolo was his contingency plan when he drafted him 4 years ago. Unfortunately, the veto power of a Rob Kraft and Tom Brady make an end around to him over the head coach is what has landed Jimmy Garoppolo in San Francisco. Now, if you saw the Super Bowl, clearly he wasn't prepared to get the job done. He didn't play a bad game, but he's not at that level yet where he can take you over the top, where he can close the game out, where you know for a fact if it comes down to it, if you're in a deficit, if you're in a dogfight, if you're in a shootout, that's the guy that's going to take you over the top. Jimmy ain't it yet. Not yet. He had a great season. But as we say that, he was backed up by one of the league's top defenses. Nick Bosa, Richard Sherman, D. Ford, like a whole host of guys across the board on the secondary, on the defensive line, at the linebacker level. Then you turn to what he has to work with in terms of weapons. George Kittle, Emmanuel Sanders was picked up. This guy, I can't think of his name. Good Lord help me. I can't think of his name. Oh, Deebo Samuel. There we go. This guy, Deebo Samuel, in his rookie year, has turned a whole lot of heads. And it doesn't require much for him. All you got to do is give him some space, and he will make your eyes pop. Those are the weapons he has to work with. And on top of that, the offensive line and a run game that includes 3 different running backs. Matt Breida, Tevin Coleman, and Rasheed Mostert. That tandem alone could put up as much points as you need to win a lot of games in the league. And so, you look at all of those aspects, the defense, the weapons, the running backs, before you even get to Jimmy Garoppolo. So, getting back to my point here, I bring that up because the Niners have emerged as a potential destination for Tom Brady. They join a list of a select few that either have interest or could be a good fit. But you would think with a team that had just gone to the Super Bowl, they're not interested in switching quarterbacks. But like I said, if you got a guy who's not going to be a guaranteed hit to take you over the top, then what are you left to do? Obviously, if Tom Brady's in the game with those type of weapons and that type of defense and that offensive line protecting him and running backs that can fly, that's not a lot of concern. Tom Brady is still an elite talent. I hate saying this. I really hate saying this because, like I said, he sorts a lot of pain for me. But even though he is declining, he's still one of the better quarterbacks in the game. And the more help he gets, the more dangerous he is. Even at 42, going on 43. So, that being said, um, the list of teams is as follows: the Raiders, who have just recently relocated to Las Vegas, the Los Angeles Chargers, and the Tennessee Titans. Following, of course, with, like I said, the San Francisco 49ers. To me, if I'm being totally honest, I would say the team that makes the most sense would probably be the Tennessee Titans. Um, Obviously, the Niners being in the equation kind of makes things a little bit different. Obviously, with a play caller like Kyle Shanahan, I almost said Mike Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan, with his play calling, obviously, um, a lot of trust was taken away from Jimmy Garoppolo in the Super Bowl, and some people didn't understand why, but I do. You know, if you don't feel like the guy can handle the high pressure situations, and you're not gonna put the game on his shoulders. Now with Tom Brady, you don't gotta worry about that. Obviously, the guy has been in every high pressure situation that you can muster up. I mean, he 25 points down in the Super Bowl in the span of a quarter and a half, gone, and they won against Kyle Shanahan. So that eliminates any and all doubts and concerns in that respect. So you pair those two together up with what they already have. I don't think it's a question that they win the Super Bowl in the next season or the season after, depending on how long he stays. But for me, if I am looking at a team that I think makes the most sense and the best fit for Tom Brady, I'm looking at the Titans because just the biggest reason, just looking right at the head coach, is Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel was a former teammate of Tom Brady. Mike Vrabel has won Super Bowls with Tom Brady. Mike Vrabel is a student of Belichick's system. And if you watch the wild card game between the Titans and the Patriots, you could argue that Mike Vrabel outcoached Bill Belichick by using his own tactics, his own schemes, his own game plan. So, a lot of times we have questioned who's going to be the guy that comes out of Belichick's coaching tree and becomes the next great coach like Belichick was. You could argue now that Mike Vrabel could potentially be on that path because with what they've established here, a lot of players were plucked from the Patriots and brought in to that system when Mike Vrabel came in. Malcolm Butler, Logan Ryan, Deion Lewis, all contributing factors into what has become a very sleeper team, but yet dangerous because this year they made it to the AFC Championship game. And you think about what they did that with. Ryan Tannehill was left for dead out of Miami. He was drafted there to be the quarterback of the future, and whether it was injuries, whether it was subpar performances, he found himself out of the fold. In Tennessee, he was expected to be the backup to Marcus Mariota. And yet, once he was initiated as the starter, after Mariota was pulled, all of a sudden, Tennessee stopped losing games. When placed in the situation to make the necessary throws, he knocks it out of the park. Now, obviously, he hasn't had to because in the backfield is a locomotive by the name of Derek Lewis, who ran for 1,500 yards, the league's leading rusher, and still very young in his career. But that alone was what made them so dangerous because as any aficionado in the game will tell you, two things that travel when you have to go on the road, because Tennessee had to go on the road for all of their playoff games. Two things that travel: a run game and a good defense. Tennessee had both. Then they had to go through a murderer's row in the playoffs. On the road in Foxborough, in New England, they beat them. On the road in Baltimore against Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore's defense. I you could say right then and there, like, dude, that's it. That's over with. Because if you watch the Ravens this season, I don't think anyone could argue that there wasn't any team better. Like, yeah, there was some aspects that other teams were more complete, but they were the most dynamic. They were the most destructive. They were causing the most havoc all season long. Havoc. Um, but then Tennessee shows up and shuts it all down. Lamar Jackson couldn't run. The defense couldn't stop anything because Derrick Henry was running wild, and because so much attention was diverted to Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill could find anyone he wanted to and throw it open to him. So they shut that down. Then they went into Kansas City, and they were up big. I believe they were up 10 or 17 points before Kansas City came back, of course, because that's been their MO all season. But they came just a little short of making it to a Super Bowl. Now, I would not be the type of person that would say, you know what, Tannehill did great, but Tom Brady's out there. But I'm not Mike Vrabel. I do not work for the Tennessee Titans. I'm not a member of the staff. So far be it from me to suggest that they do not look into bringing Tom Brady in, especially with that familiarity, like I said, with the coach, and with everything that they have in place now. This is a team that has never won a Super Bowl before. So if ever there was a time to consider, it would be now. It would definitely be now. And so, obviously, with everything else going on in the world, a lot of that has taken a back seat. But when the time comes to restart the train here and get back going to, free agency period and everything like that, we will see where Tom Brady goes. Obviously, the bigger question is, what is the chances, what is the likelihood that New England can bring him back? I'm gonna be honest, man. I can't tell you. I don't know, because obviously, like I said before, the owner wants to keep Brady. The owner wants him to retire there. But Belichick has other ideas. He's trying to move forward. And it's not, I don't think this is personal. I mean, obviously, with, a lot of the things that's happened in the last few seasons, there may not be a lot of love lost, but it's not personal. Belichick likes to be able to sustain. However, if he's forced to keep rolling with Tom Brady, it's clear that he is leaving the cupboard empty, because why should he keep being forced to ride with the guy that he's already won so many championships with when he is trying to sustain greatness? So I hinted at this about 3 years ago, the potential breakdown in trust and breakdown in relationship from these three: Kraft, Brady, Belichick. What happens within the next couple months, provided we can continue with everything in the sports world soon, I believe that my words shall come to pass, and that this will fracture some relationship. Either Brady goes, or I truly believe if Tom Brady does not, Belichick will. That's just my 2 cents about that. But we'll see. We'll see. Now, shifting gears a little bit. Obviously, as I said before, uh, coronavirus ain't playing. Ain't playing at all. A lot, a lot of the world is being affected by this, and more specifically, the sports world. If you're like me and you're a fan of wrestling, pro wrestling, the biggest thing that has caused an issue has been the mandates against mass gatherings. Obviously, that means that if you're going to a sporting event, if you're supposed to be going to a sporting event, it's probably not going to happen because large crowds, they're not having that now. And so now we see, like I said before, UFC's on right now with an event in Brazil. No fans in attendance whatsoever. It's almost eerie. So, this past week, we saw a truly, truly history-making moment because the live events for WWE, particularly last night, SmackDown, took place in an empty arena. This is the Performance Center, a small venue, but no fans in attendance, none whatsoever. Yet the show went on without a hitch at all. Now, I would commend the good folks at WWE for sticking to their guns and keeping the show going no matter what. I understand. You know, you gotta keep the train rolling. But as much as this is not a time to freak out and panic, you do have to take this very seriously. You do have to acknowledge the existence of the hazards that are out there right now. And I'm saying that to say we're we're 3 weeks away from WrestleMania. Biggest event in sports entertainment history, biggest event on the WWE calendar, the cash cow that delivers the success of the brand. It's supposed to take place in Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, Florida on April 5th. It is March 14th, and the cases of coronavirus have only increased. So, obviously, officials down in Tampa are not too keen on sticking with the date. Vince, however, stubborn as all hell, the man who beat the government, has not announced any postponements, any cancellations, anything like that. So we're headed for a bit of an impasse here. Because, obviously, like the other leagues, the NBA, the NHL, MLB, they have all suspended their operations. The NBA season is still set to continue at a later date when the situation is contained and under control. The WWE doesn't have an off season, unfortunately. It goes 365 all year round, from city to city, from country to country, from continent to continent. So when this train gets derailed or slowed, there's not much of a break period to take. So the mantra of the show must go on is as serious to this company as anyone else. There is nothing that says that they can't hold the event in an empty arena like they did before. There's nothing that says that they can't postpone the event further down the line until such a time where we can get back to gathering in large crowds without the risk of anyone's health. But Someone's got to make that call. News today says that within the coming days, should WWE not make a decision about a postponement, cancellation, then they, the officials in Tampa, will be pulling the plug and they will not be allowing it. So, one way or another, this is going to be affected. The event is going to be affected, and we could either see a quiet WrestleMania or none at all until later, maybe in the summer, maybe early summer, maybe early spring, maybe May, maybe June. Who knows? But if I'm being honest here, it makes more sense to push it back. You know, there's nothing on the calendar for June. You know, football isn't going to be played in June, obviously. So it's not like the venue's going anywhere. Honestly, there's a lot of pride in you know, who we're talking about here, and Vince McMahon and the company. You know, if you try to have WrestleMania in a quiet arena with no fans in attendance, it kind of just destroys the all the inner workings of it. It destroys the quality of the show. You know, when you think WrestleMania, you think thousands upon thousands of people from all walks of life across the world converging on one location to be entertained, albeit for a long time. I mean, I went to WrestleMania 35 last year, and I was there for maybe like 10, 11 hours total. But that's really the idea. You bring so many people here, and it's like a festival. It's like a moment. You can't put that together without the people. So, I mean, even if the idea is to keep the show going, you don't want to have the biggest show in your company's history, in the history of sports entertainment, take place with no fans in attendance. That's just not a good idea. It's not. You know, there's nothing wrong with saying, like, listen, we can't do this right now. I don't think anyone would be hurt by that. Obviously, it's a not even a nationwide thing. It's a worldwide thing. You know, it's affecting everybody. So to say that you're not able to put on this show at this date at this time, nothing wrong with that. You know, sometimes you just gotta take it out. You just got to. And I don't even think this should be considered an L, honestly. I think it just be considered that, you know what, it's not working out right now. We'll do it later. You know, stuff happens. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be this much of, you know, a disagreement, honestly. But you know, that's just me. I'm not a billionaire. I don't run, you know, a $1 billion corporation industry. So what do I know? But what I do know is, as a fan, I'm not trying to see no empty arena WrestleMania. So at a certain point, sir, Mr. McMahon, you have to stick to the words that you said on TV so many times but never quite lived up to, and give the fans what they want. If that means you got to take a break, take a break. Everyone else did. I mean, not the UFC, obviously. If you're tuning in right now on ESPN, fights are still going on, but there's no fans. It's unfortunate. It's a crazy time we're living in, but you have to adapt, you have to adjust, and you have to make some tough decisions. Damn it, so do it. And speaking of tough decisions, that brings me to the last topic of the day. And it's one that I feel very strongly about. But before I get to that, I'm going to talk about last weekend. UFC 248, headlined by Yoel Romero, Israel Adesanya, for the World Middleweight Championship. Um, my big takeaway is, how does this fight affect Israel Adesanya's legacy? Well, if you want me to be totally honest here, off the cuff, straight up, this is a fight that when Israel Adesanya looks back over his legacy, the last style bender, the anomaly that he has been in the UFC for the past couple years, when he goes back over his career, this is a fight that he's going to skip over. And here's why. Israel has run through some of the best the division has to offer. Absolute best. Derek Brunson, Kelvin Gastelum, Anderson Silva, and ultimately the champ himself, the undisputed champ, Robert Whittaker. He ran through this murderous row as a guy. He became the undisputed champion. And he made the decision that I want to fight Yoel Romero, the guy nobody else wants to fight. The guy a lot of people are legitimately scared of because he's that dangerous, he's that unpredictable, and he will put your lights out in an instant. That guy, that's who he chose to fight. He said, and I quote, "I want to finish him properly. I want to take on the boogeyman." That's what he wanted to do. So, by definition, you are saying that you want to slay the dragon. You want to go out and put on this fight and assert yourself as the champion that you are. You're not afraid. You're going straight at him. That was the notion that you put in all the fans' heads, in their minds, in their eyes. That's what you had everyone excited for. That's what people were salivating to get to this fight, because everyone thought that, you know what, Izzy trying to take it to Yoel. Him and Yoel are going to bang it out, and somebody's going to drop. Somebody's going to get hurt. This is going to be a banger. And we get to this fight, and both guys, and because I'm not going to put the blame on one or the other, both guys went out and just played it safe. Everybody was scared. Well, no, I'm not going to say scared, because I'm not going to sit up here and call no fighter scared, because I've never stepped in the cage. I've never fought in the cage or ring. I'm not going to call any fighter scared. I said that Izzy fought scared because Yoel, like I said before, is that dangerous that he can hit you from anywhere. And he is just waiting like a loaded gun to fire off. He just took his position and waited for Izzy to make a move. And early in the first round, you saw what happens when you take a shot. Because Izzy went in for a shot early. And right when he did that, Yoel unloaded an overhand, caught him flat right in the mush. And you saw him back up. Izzy backed up, was blinking a lot. His eyes were probably watering because that shit stung. And we all know it did. So once he got hit, he didn't want to get hit in the first place. Let me be clear about that. He didn't want to get hit in the first place. But once he got hit and felt that power, felt that sting, he did not want to get touched again. So now, what do? Well, you play the point system. You back up, you use the distance and your range you have, and you score the only way that you can without taking any type of risk. How is that? The leg kicks. That's what Izzy did. He sat back and he hit the leg kicks. Now, like I said, I don't put this blame on one or the other, because at the end of the day, if you're Yoel Romero, you're 42 years of age. Granted, if this is what 42 looks like, I hope I look that good at 42 and that I'm able to be in that kind of condition to be in a premier main event, picture like that. Anyone should aspire to be a 42-year-old like Yoel Romero. Let me be clear. But if you are him, You have to consider the fact that this may be the last opportunity that you have to win gold, to win the championship. Throughout his career, the opportunities have come and gone, and they've either been sabotaged or, he's made a mistake here and there, missing weight, or, whatever the case may be, a faulty test. These opportunities are not coming the way that he would have expected. So for this to be a fight that went off without a hitch, no problems making weight. He made weight just fine. No irregular tests or anything like that. You made it to the fight, got in the cage, belt on the line. It's not like the fight with Robert Whittaker, which he definitely won. But now he's in there with the champion, Israel Adesanya, and the belt is literally yours to take if you can win. And what did he do? He just said, okay, well, I'm here, you fight me. Meanwhile, like I said, Izzy no longer wants to get hit, no longer wants to get touched. So he's just scoring out the leg kicks. Scoring, not trying to get hit, keeping the distance, score. And that's the way the fight went all 5 rounds and to the end. I've never seen a ref, and after every single round of a fight, come together with 2 guys and say, hey, listen, you guys got to fight. You got to get them something to score. The judges didn't know how to score this fight. Obviously, they gave it in favor of Israel Adesanya because he scored more, but it's like, what are you producing for them? And that's why I think this is a collective effort. They both dropped the ball in this fight. But I bring up the question about Izzy for his legacy because, again, you came out and you said that you wanted Romero. You wanted the bad man in the middleweight division, the guy that everyone's scared to fight. You want to finish him properly, and you didn't do that. Your words did not match your actions that night in the cage. You made a big fat check that your ass did not cash whatsoever. So, yeah, you win the fight. Yeah, you're still the champion. And at the end of the day, you got to beat the champion to be the champion. But it's not that this is a black mark. It's not that this is something that will take away from his legacy. He's still one of the best in the game right now. And I believe that his upside is tremendous. But this is not a fight that he wants to remember at all. And like I said, for Romero too, at the end of the day, you got to think about the fact that, dude, you had a chance here. You had a major chance, and you blew it. So, that was an unfortunate turn of events on a night that we expected to see fireworks in the main event. The co-main event, however, was an entirely different story. And that is what brings me to the original point I was saying to get to. I'm going to be very clear. I am a huge fan of Joanna Jędrzejczyk. If she ever listens to this, if she ever sees this, Joanna, I am a huge fan of you and your work. At the time that she was champion, I believe that she was the best striker in the UFC, regardless of gender, regardless of division, whatever. I believe she was the best pure striker at the time. Now, and even now, she's still one of the best, like top 3. But when she was champion, no one was on it better than she was. I want to be very clear about that, okay? And that fight between her and Zhang Weili was one of the greatest fights I've ever seen in my life. Truthfully. That wasn't women's MMA history. That was MMA history, period. That was an amazing performance by both women. It was legacy defining. It was career defining. And it was the defining moment for the sport. Like it, millions of young women and men too will be inspired by what they saw that night. Like that was something that no one ever expected to see. We knew this was going to be a great fight, but there was no way to indicate how great this would be. Now, prefacing what I'm about to say with all of that, okay? I'm a huge fan. That was one of the best fights ever. Want to be clear about this. With that being said, I believe wholeheartedly that Joanna needs to consider the next phase of life after this cage. Outside the cage, after the fight game, it's time to consider the next step. And I mean seriously consider it. Because while I am a huge fan, while I thoroughly enjoyed this fight, and while she showed a warrior spirit, what was the biggest headline coming out of that fight? The end of the fight, all people could talk about, look at Johanna's face. Look at what happened to her face. Now, let me be very clear. Joanna Jędrzejczyk is a very attractive woman. She's gorgeous. But they are talking about her face because it was blown up as a result of this war that she just had. What happened was, over the course of the fight, now, obviously, if you watch the fight, judges awarded the fight to Zhang Weilei. I don't know who won the fight, if I'm being totally honest. I do not know. I was so caught up in this fight. I have to watch it again. I was so caught up in it. It was so amazing. It was so back and forth. These two are like the same fighter, if you really paid attention. They are so alike in their movements, in their speed, in their power. Obviously, Zhang is obviously much more powerful, as we saw. But if you watch the fight, they're two of the same fighter. They were matching shot for shot. The difference was just Zhang hit a little bit harder. So I don't know who really won that fight. I don't know who really took it. But judges awarded it to Zhang Weilei. Now, what happened with Johanna is she suffered a very, very massive hematoma. Now, I took the time to read up and learn about this. A hematoma is a solid swelling, essentially a blood clot, right inside the tissue. And if we're talking specifics here, would be inside the forehead. If it's in or near the brain, it's considered rather dangerous. Or, in the case of Johanna, like for this case, a scalp hematoma, they call it, affectionately called a goose egg, right up under the skin of the forehead, or the scalp. The reason I'm saying this right now, that she should consider the next phase, is because this is not the first time we have seen this happen before. If by my count, from the fights that I've watched Joanna Jędrzejczyk in, this is the third time she suffered a hematoma. And they have never been small. I've seen the scalp, the goose egg or whatever, that was massive. I mean, like the size of a baseball over her forehead, or on the side of her forehead, against Carolina. I can't say her last name. Against Carolina at UFC 205. The side next to her eye, over to the forehead, was swelled up. Against Jessica Andrade, she, like I said, a goose egg the size of a baseball. And now this fight, that that was grotesque. That was excessive. The fact that she kept fighting, the swelling started midway through the fight. They went all 5 rounds. It started midway through the fight, and she kept going for at least 2 more rounds with that massive swelling over her head. She could feel it, and she said she did, and it was very painful. But this woman is the type that will fall on her shield at the end of the day. She will not surrender. She will not give in to it. And that's another reason that made this fight was so amazing, because she wasn't about to lay down. You know, she's going through something, but she's going to keep fighting like her life depends on it. But then I sit there and I watch this and I say, my God, what's going to happen to her after this? Well, what is the extent of the injury going to be? Because nobody really knew. If you watched that fight and you saw what her face looked like afterwards, you didn't know what was going to happen to her. All you knew was that she and Jung were both going to the hospital to treat the injuries, if there were any. And I'm going to say this. As it's been said, that typically a scalp hematoma, or the quote-unquote the goose egg, typically when they are in front of the skull, they're not considered, they're not something that you need to worry about. However, something that's also related to the injury are brain contusions, which is typically caused by forceful blows directly to the head. Joanna has been in some wars in her time. This was just the latest one, and it was probably the greatest one. She hits just as hard as she gets hit back. She understands all the risks. But you got to think about life after you fight. Because how much longer can you take damage like that and expect to live life? She's only what, 30, 32, I believe? She's in her early 30s. She's still very, very young. And it's frightening to see something like this after a great fight like that. Like, yes, you enjoyed the fight and you loved what you saw, but then reality sets in when it's all said and done. That the deformity that took place there. A lot of people were making their memes and their jokes. It's not funny at all. I sat there at the end of that fight terrified for this woman. Because it made me think of, all these situations with athletes, NFL players, boxers, and things like that. The brain injuries that you suffer later on, they may not, manifest right away as you're still in the midst of your career. But 10 years down the road, when you hang it up and you're trying to live freely in retirement, all of a sudden, something comes up. And it doesn't sit well. And it affects your livelihood. I'll give you an example here. Almost a year ago, for boxing fans out there, we heard the story about Maxim Dadashev, the Russian boxer, was in a welterweight title qualifier, was in a war, and went all the way into, I believe, the 11th round. He was getting teed off on, right to the dome. In that 11th round, his corner called the fight. They threw the towel in because he could not take it. He was out on his feet. He wouldn't stop fighting, but the guy was taking so much damage, they had to save his life because he could not take anymore, and they knew it. What a lot of people didn't know was that during that fight, and the reason that they called it um, was that he actually suffered a subdural hematoma. Now, what that is, still the building up, the clotting of blood, but now it's so deep, it's between the blood and the outermost covering, meaning it's going to put pressure on the skull, which then is going to cause compression and damage to the brain tissue. So he suffered a severe subdural hematoma. He got out of the ring. Immediately, he was throwing up. He was passing out. They rushed him to the hospital, and they had to do emergency surgery to relieve the pressure from his brain. They thought they could save him. They thought he'd be all right. But the end result is, as most of you know, he didn't make it. Very young man, a warrior, lost his life. And I'm not sitting up here saying that he shouldn't have fought. I'm not sitting up here saying that he was dumb for what he did, for staying as long as he did. But it's just the consideration that, the saying goes, you live to fight another day. But not everyone should fight another day. And I said it earlier and I'll say it again. I will watch every fight Joanna Jędrzejczyk is in for however long she continues her career. But I'm also a fan that looks at things as a human being. If she said tomorrow that she retires, I'm happy for her. Because at the end of the day, her legacy is intact. She's one of the greatest fighters of all time, one of the greatest fighters in the history of MMA, one of the greatest champions in the history of MMA. She has earned the right to walk away whenever she wants to and be a Hall of Famer without question. And I believe she should. Because, like I said, she's so young and has so much life ahead of her. But the damage that she's taken in the cage is, no one really knows the extent of it. They left the hospital and they said there were no injuries, nothing worth note. But at the end of the day, how do you know this won't catch up to you? That's the risk that apparently she's willing to take. But if you ask me, I would strongly consider another way, another option. That's just me as a fan. And like I said, if you ever hear this, if you ever see this video, if you ever listen to this recording, please do not take this as, I don't think you're good enough to fight. I don't think it's smart for you to fight. Listen, I'm a huge fan. I love your work. I will watch every fight that you get in that from this point forward. So this is nothing in the realm of slight at all. I want to be clear about that. It's concern. Because, we're in an age where medical science is improving so much and it's telling us so many things that we never knew 5-10 years ago. And in a world where you see a lot of athletes walking away earlier than expected. So many of these NFL players have retired at 23, 24, 25 years of age because they want to have their health. They know what damage is being done. They want to, be with their families and raise their kids and enjoy the better years of their life. I'm not one to tell anyone what to do. I'm just, again, speaking from a place of care. I'm a huge fan. I want to see her go in the Hall of Fame one day, but I also want to see her have her health when it's all said and done. So, just as another PSA, you know, be safe. Don't die in the midst of your profession. I don't believe that's the way life was intended. So, got that out of the way. But that's gonna do it for the show today. Went a little bit longer than I expected, but that's how it goes. I had a lot of notes, a lot of stuff to get into. It's been a wild week, and obviously, with sports being shut down, there's going to be a lot to touch on. So later on, I may in fact do this tomorrow and get the next episode up on some entertainment news and stuff like that, because obviously, virus has affected not just sports but other realms of everything in society as we know it. So I'll get into that maybe this weekend, maybe Monday. Who knows? We'll see. But everybody that tuned in, I appreciate you. You guys that checked out the Instagram live, appreciate y'all as well. But shout out to everyone that has been supportive during this time. That I've been working on this thing. I'm doing my best to get things going more. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. This has been the Havoc Hour. I've been Reek Havoc as always. And I will see you guys later in the week to bring some more news to you. Thank you very much. I'm out.